Well, that round sucked. 2 sweeps in the East, almost a 3rd sweep in the West. Then again, it's hard to top a round 1 that was as crazy as it was. Anyway, on we go. Here come the conference finals. Welcome to the penalty box. Woo! Tampa Bay wins with the sweep, ousting first-seeded Washington. What the hell happened? That may as well be the title of the first half of this video, because I could recap what happened. Tampa Bay swept Washington. There. But that doesn't even begin to explain the epic collapse that was Washington. The only bright spot? Alexander Ovechkin. The rest of the team? I hear they're still looking for them. Tampa Bay has a great defense and a good goalie. Shut them down. That doesn't make the pill any easier to swallow for the Caps. To be honest, I see changes coming in Washington. Because that's 2 disappointing premature exits from the playoffs after 2 seasons on top of the East. Bruce Boudreau, is he to blame? Because he may be the fall guy, but many of the players didn't even show up. Once again, a long summer of searching and unanswered questions in the US Capitol. But hey, I can't leave it there without giving full credit to Tampa. I mean, for every choke, there is a great team on the other side who proves the doubters wrong. Boston pulls off the second upset of the round as they sweep Philly from the playoffs. And what a disappointment this series was. Don't get me wrong, what Boston did was remarkable, but come on! You have 2 big mean teams in what promises to be a rough and tough matchup, and one of them takes a summer vacation early? Philly looked like they didn't even belong out there. The problem with Philly is they're an attack-based team, and they played that to their advantage all season long, just relentlessly attack the opposition. But what Boston did here was just smart coaching. Back-checking forwards just picking apart the attack as soon as they set foot outside their own end. And that's the story of the first 2 games. The attack just kept getting picked apart. And the Flyers' goalie situation didn't help. And before you know it, they dropped the first 2 at home. Then you come back to Boston, and if ever there was a time to have a big game, this is it. Then they come out and... oh, I don't like their expressions. Just completely defeated, flat effort, and before you know it, they're down 3-0. Moving on to Game 4, Philly's been here before, and when they're faced with this type of situation, they just need to dig deep and... oh, it's 5-1. Wow. So Boston completes what they couldn't do last year, sweeps the Flyers, and sends them packing. Good on Boston, sets up an interesting East final, but I'll get to that. On to the West now. The Vancouver Canucks win their series 4-2 over Pekka Rinne. The rest of the team is not worth mentioning. Honestly, this guy deserves more recognition. He is definitely the most underrated goalie in the league. I know I praised the Nashville forwards last video, but this series was all Vancouver. If it hadn't been for Rinne, Nashville would have been destroyed. Completely and utterly pulverized. But on the bright side, Vancouver's really stepped their game up. Luongo stood on his head. Alexander Burrows upped his production. The Sedin twins were asleep at the beginning, but even they began to wake up. And of course, I couldn't do this series justice if I didn't mention Vancouver's MVP of the first round, the Green Men. No, I'm just kidding. It was Ryan Kesler. What a round he had, completely breaking out with his 5-goal, 10-point series monster performance. He was involved in some way with almost every single one of Vancouver's goals, either as the scorer or assisting. And people might criticize the Canucks, saying the Sedins really need to wake up if they hope to win the Cup, but here's the thing about Vancouver. The Sedins are a force on the ice, no one can argue that. But when a team faces Vancouver, they put their best defense pairing and their best lines up against the Sedins. And this is what frees up Kesler. Because while everyone's focusing on Henrik and Daniel, this gives Kessler's line room to operate. So yeah, it would be nice to get more production from Dan and Hank. But when you have a player as amazing as Kesler on the second line ready to let loose, sure, throw everything you have at the Twins. They'll just hit you with the next best thing. Wrapping this up, the Detroit Red Wings almost complete the epic comeback but fall short, losing in 7 games to the San Jose Sharks. Okay, this has become too easy. The whole come from 3 games down to tie it up thing. Only 2 teams in history before the lockout managed to come back and win from being 3 games down. The Leafs at their height and the Islanders at their height. Then we have a plucky Philadelphia team do it last year in the midst of an epic Boston collapse. And all of a sudden, everybody thinks they can do it. We almost had 2 of these in this year alone. I know I may sound like a homer here because comebacks are exciting, but it cheapens the achievements of past teams if everybody's able to do it. Because if you have an 8th seed pulling off an epic comeback against the President's Trophy winners who dominated all season long, like Chicago almost did in the first round, yeah, it's become too easy. And can we please stop calling the San Jose Sharks jokers? 2 years ago I would have agreed with you, but last year they made the conference finals, they only lost to the Stanley Cup winner, and still before this year's playoffs I heard that label of choker thrown around. Can we drop it now that they've made the conference final 2 years in a row? Because if you're one of the top 4 in the league, I don't care who's on your team or how far you should be going, that can never be considered choking. As for the actual series, Jimmy Hart was good, Niemi was better, Thornton played great. Moving on. Blog was up in time, it's down here, predictions. The Boston Bruins versus the Tampa Bay Lightning. This will be a very interesting one to watch. Because these 2 teams benefit from some great goaltending and awesome defense, but other than that, they are polar opposites. In Boston, Tim Thomas was key in the sweep of the Flyers, while in Tampa Bay, Rolison and their incredible defense core completely shut down the Caps. But that's where the similarities end. And the differences are obvious. Boston has size, and Tampa Bay has speed. Like crazy fast speed and sweet hands. Matched up against huge, bruising defensemen who tower over your speedy forwards, backed up by one of the best goalies in the league. This is going to be a close series. And what's going to be interesting is to see who uses their tools to their greatest advantage. But what worries me here is that in Boston's series with Montreal, they didn't use their size effectively, needing 7 games and overtime to decide a winner. I see a very similar matchup here because Tampa Bay is similar to Montreal. Except, you know, more skilled. I know I picked Boston to go all the way to the Cup since they beat Philly, but Tampa really impressed me last round. Yep, I'm jumping ship. Tampa Bay in 6. The Vancouver Canucks versus the San Jose Sharks. And it's seed 1 versus seed 2 in the conference finals, the way hockey purists will tell you it should be. And what a matchup this will be with all the flash and all the talent on each team. And looking at the skill on each team, who has more skill is too close to call, because for every weapon that the Canucks have, the Sharks have an equally talented player to fire back with. The Canucks have the Sedin twins, the Sharks have Thornton and Marleau. The Sharks have Joe Pavelski, the Canucks have Ryan Kessler. The Canucks have Alexander Burrows, the Sharks have Logan Couture. The Sharks have Danny Boyle, the Canucks have Kevin Bieksa. Even on the back end, the Canucks have Roberto Luongo, and the Sharks have a playoff version of Antti Niemi. Which means it's like the regular season version of Antti Niemi on speed! Except a version of speed that makes you insanely good at hockey and not just a jittery dope fiend. This is going to be the toughest test yet for the Canucks. They've just gone through 2 invaluable learning experiences in the past 2 rounds. In round 1, they learned mental toughness while exercising demons of the past against Chicago. In round 2, they learned how to beat a hot goalie. Are they ready to put those lessons to use in round 3? I expect this series to be a high-scoring affair, and I believe that whoever wins this series wins the Cup. And in the end, it could just come down to who has more energy. The Sharks just came out of an exhausting series against the Wings. But the Canucks just ousted their opponents in 6 games, earning a few crucial extra days of rest. That could be the edge they need. You know I gotta go with my first round favorites, the only Canadian team left in this thing. So here we go, the Vancouver Canucks will win in 7 games, advancing to their 2nd Stanley Cup final in franchise history, their first since 1994. And before I go, a little shameless plug. Once again, I'm pointing you in the direction of Colin Lack from caniacandleafer.com, if you'll remember from previous videos. He just posted a 4th edition in his series of blogs on headshots. I'll be posting the link down here, and he decided to interview me again. Except this time, instead of having the interview written in text, we actually recorded it voice to voice so you can download and listen to it. That's right, the first Heffiewiggle podcast. It's quite long, just so you're warned, but we cover lots of stuff, everything from headshots to what the Leafs will look like next year. And this may be premature, but Colin and I are planning to collaborate on more of this stuff in the future, so I'll let you know when this stuff is coming out, either by Facebook page, Twitter, or both. So if you don't already follow me, you know what to do. Links down here! Alright, here we are, halfway to the cup. I'll see you with the finals. Go Canucks!